Most strenuously, I would like to set up this mind structure uh, as some essence of what is required. And what I'm doing here is pretty Mickey Mouse. I'm trying to bring to memory some movies that you may have seen or may have missed seeing that bring out sort of poignant points about... I'm not going to give the male mind too many breaks in terms of... I think that at the bottom of it all, each heart, each soul has a membrane whereby seeps into it some, understanding, whether it's just in an off-kilter moment or whatever. And most men, like for example, when on a documentary about women in the RCMP, where a woman is being undermined and attacked in a verbal assault sort of way, and no man, in this case RCMP officers, stood up for her. Men need to have more courage, and they are so systematically bludgeoned by the idea of, the locker room, the male locker room, the sports locker room. And this is, it's a hard time for everybody, because everybody would like to know how the Maple Leafs would have made out, given how hot and cold they've been throughout the course of the year. Whether the Raptors have enough grit to, make it back to the final. All sorts of interesting hockey stories. Kovalchuk and Ovechkin together in Washington. There could be that filament of chemistry. What's going to happen throughout the Football League, XFL, just getting off the ground barely, and so on. But there's a nucleus of understanding, of lack of courage in the male mind, because to exhibit that courage means to sort of, step out, to go against the grain and so on. Jazzy, you are being very noisy, and I don't like it. Okay. I'm going to give my cat some treats here. Sorry for the... So we're going to take a look at a little piece of Metal Jacket by Stanley Kubrick to show how the male mind can be machined, how it can be intimidated, how it can be massaged into a particular shape, and how that shape can ultimately be the destiny that it's all about. Okay, here we go. Where are we? Say goodbye and write me while I'm gone. Goodbye, my sweetheart. Hello, Vietnam.
I am Gunnery Sergeant Hartman, your senior drill instructor. From now on, you will speak only when spoken to. And the first and last words out of your filthy sewers will be sir. Do you maggots understand that?
Sir, yes, sir.
Bullshit, I can't hear you. Sound off like you got a pair.
Sir, yes, sir.
If you ladies leave my island, if you survive recruit training, you will be a weapon. You will be a minister of death praying for war. But until that day, you are cutes. You are the lowest form of life on earth. You are not even human fucking beings. You are nothing but unorganized, grabastic pieces of amphibian shit. Because I am hard, you will not like me. But the more you hate me, the more you will learn. I am hard, but I am fair. There is no racial bigotry here. I do not look down on niggers, types, wops, or greasers. Here you are all equally worthless. And my orders are to weed out all non-hackers who do not pack the gear to serve in my beloved corps. Do you maggots understand that?
Sir, yes, sir.
Bullshit, I can't hear you.
Sir, yes, sir.
What's your name, scumbag?
Sir, Private Brown, sir.
Bullshit, from now on you're Private Snowball. Do you like that name?
Sir, yes, sir.
Well, there's one thing that you won't like, Private Snowball. They don't serve fried chicken and watermelon on a daily basis in my mess hall.
Sir, yes, sir.
You, John Wayne? Is this me?
Who said that? Who the fuck said that? Who's the slimy little communist shit twinkle-toed cocksucker down here who just signed his own death warrant?
Okay, now, I'm not the guy who would have enough courage to stand up in that scenario, and obviously, if I had been there, you know, here I am, from small town Ontario, Canada, and a lot of the, well, like in the beginning of Hair, where the kid comes from, he gets on the bus at the farm, and so on and so forth. From all over the United States, from however restrained and contrite the environment that you're coming from, you come and you are subjected to this sort of male orientation, and you have to take it. You have to take it. And that's the sad truth, that so many men then end up totally aborting their emotional capacitation, which takes a lot of work and a lot of effort to honestly correlate where you want to feel, how you want to navigate with your feelings, whether you're going to be loved or rejected or whatever. The male motif clings to this one-dimensional male, which is really just, you know, an ape, a monkey in terms of evolution. It's as if the brain's 100 billion neuron universe never happened, because they keep a tight constraint into this male ideation of focus and definition. So I want to look at that's how the male mind can be machined into a killing machine, and what it ends up doing is killing its own emotional reality.
Fools no shit like that, because they ain't in the bitch's nature.
Why every time you talk about a female, you gotta say bitch or hoe or hoochie?
Because that's what you are.
Nigga, fuck you.
Okay, so here we have a scene, Ice Cube. The important thing is that this character, this tough guy, this anti-female, if you go back in the movie, and I guess I'm not going back fast enough here, let's see if I can.
Because that's what you are. Ready for all that.
Okay, sorry, it's too far back there. At any rate, there's a scene where, you know, 7 years earlier, or whatever it is, as a kid, he gets in trouble with the police. His mother, who hates his father and who he reminds her of, says that, you know, he does nothing around there except eat shit and whatever else he does, and is obviously unloading on him all the time. So that this male here hating females and how he navigates his situation there is important in terms of his own superstructure of who he is and what he wants to define himself by. Next time we may take a look at Thelma and Louise, where, well, when Louise, I guess it is, I forget which is which. Anyways, her husband's watching the football game when he gets a phone call that they've, you know, she's disappeared, and he's totally wrapped up in the football game, so much so he steps in the pizza. And then later on, of course, you have the truck driver whose truck that they end up blowing sky high. But this is, you know, the perpetuation of an idea of the male sexual animal to be a real man, to be a tough man, to be John Wayne, to be the Marlboro Man, to be, you know, Iron Man, whatever it is. It requires of that human being a certain Teflon coatedness. You cannot show your emotion. And this is horrible in a local situation. 28-year-old media spokesperson, cop locally, committed suicide. And a lot of police in Ontario, where I live, Canada, have committed suicide. And it's because of this this male bullying, that they'll pick someone as a scapegoat and they'll unload it just as a way of practicing how they can manipulate energy. And it's the good guys. It's the guys who can actually feel. There's another one down in Toronto who left a note, I think. He killed himself down by Lake Ontario. Again, it's the ones who have empathy, who experience empathy, who can walk a mile in somebody's shoes, who can see the rarefied vision through, because of the mirror neurons and because of all these things. And as I've suggested with, the other thing, I had scheduled for this and then I sort of deviated from it, is Dustin Hoffman and Tom Cruise in Rain Man. All these movies, I'm suggesting that if you can get a chance to look at them, and when Tom Cruise tries to grab the Rain Man and he freaks out and so on and so forth. This is a person whose brain can memorize 23 novels word for word, but at the same time can't process personality, can't tell you anything about the characters in those books. And Daniel Tammet, Brain Man, who I've mentioned before, if he's interviewed, he can't remember the interviewer's face. So for being able to learn a foreign language in a week and being able to recite pi for 4.5, 5 hours accurately, Daniel Tammet pays a big price. He has to take a look at a picture of his partner to know a recent picture so that he can measure that against somebody picking him up at the airport, because he won't recognize that person. So to me, there's a lot here in the book Switched On. We see how that character, I forget his name again, but his evolution out of autism, the topography is marked out there. He's put a flag on the moon in each of those territories. And there's another book called Autism on LSD, which again personifies many of the things that I've suggested in my books that exist. And it's all because of this rigidity, because as we fire and wire and as we myelinate, we coat, we insulate our brain, and this brain has shaped itself. This frontal cortex, this parallax has gone out, and it's embraced life, and it's massaged it into a way that it can deal with it. And here we are, coronavirus. Everybody's life has automatically changed. You couldn't have asked for something more startling than to take this globe, moving at the pace that it's moving at, and boom, put the brakes on and bring it to a halt. So here we have a situation where we can rewrite the human mind. Soft-wired brain, we can replasticize, we can fire and wire new meaning. The globe was running out of control. Corporations like Amazon and Google and enormously larger economically than most of the countries in the world, if not all the countries in the world. We need to nail this down. We need to nail it down now, because like lemmings, we're all rushing over the cliff. This McLuhan-esque hot and cold thing has galvanized us into Republicans or Democrats, conservatives or liberals. And there's really very little to distinguish between them, except the conservatives and the Republicans do support privatization. And I'm against privatization. The fact that in ETR 407 in my province, Ontario, that this chunk of highway was given to a private corporation that would then make billions out of it, and that money could have gone to interface. I can't think of any other country where, France that I've driven through, or Portugal or Switzerland, that would take a toll highway, their own property, and sell it to a private firm when it's such a money-making venture, or LCBO, or any of these things. And people will say, well, then, it makes it leaner and meaner. In Toronto, they privatized all the tree cutting, and they found out through the computers that were attached to the vehicles that the people said that they had trimmed the trees in these areas. They had never been near that territory, near that area in Toronto. Same thing with the snowplow. Privatized it, and the plows weren't out on the roads. They weren't doing what they were contracted for. And of course, you can litigate, you can pursue it infinitely. But like a lot of things, and this is like the police union, for example, where the head of the police union in this province, I believe, has run a bill up of $1 million plus in defending himself against accusations that he was corrupt. And this tough guy reality, this raging bull mentality that you have to have that red piece of meat and you have to have the bull and you have to be bloodthirsty, and well, again, just like Jojo Rabbit, he's got to cut the neck of the rabbit if he's going to belong to the Hitler group, and he runs away from that. He runs against the grain of his own maleness. And the thing is that if you abide by this maleness, your likelihood of being depressed, bipolar, attention deficit, hydrated, Alzheimer's, dementia, the whole shebang. This is new. We haven't lived in this digital reality for so long, with information coming so fast it displaces day to day the information that was there before. The coronavirus thing goes up and so on and so forth. This is our chance to make a leap over Snake Canyon into a new idea of who we are and what we are, and what we have to recognize is what we want to do in terms of empathy and subjectivity. Because the male mind, which is in the ascendancy, it's a man's world, it's the corporate world, it's the dog-eat-dog world of capitalism. And if that's the way we go, then these leaders, we will see them. We will see them in the next decade losing their minds. Because just like coronavirus is an equal opportunity killer, it will get Prince Charles, it will get Chris Cuomo, it will get, whoever. It doesn't matter, whether you're a cop, a tough guy, it doesn't matter. And that says a lot. I'm hoping that, as I approach Easter Friday, thinking that to keep things sacred, that this is monumental symbolically, that on Good Friday and Easter, there's going to be one of these peaks of deaths in the United States. And that should be a profound inspiration for us to purify our hearts, to forget, this firing and wiring structure, to leap with this energy of an epiphany of the coronavirus, to clean the slate and start over and try to materialize, it's dark energy, dark matter, dark flow, everything that's in the universe, the macrocosm, the microcosm. We are organically, tethered to the entire universe, and we don't understand. Just today there was a documentary on the universe, on space-time. The universe, we have to face the fact. We don't have the mental energy to understand, wrap our heads around space-time, why quantum energy and relativity and so on are so far apart, and what's the difference between the Aurora Borealis and gangster rap or something. The complexity that we have in front of us in terms of navigation, the labyrinth, everything is a challenge, as it should be, in terms of the journey of discovery, of an epiphany unfolding, like Malcolm X, the powerful transformation from a violent man to a believer, and then incremental and intimate and specific informative evolution every day. That's plasticity, that's neurogenesis, that's migrating your firing and wiring, that's culminating change, a whole lot of change at once if you can, if you can get the energy. And when it comes to religion, most of them, with all the costuming and so on, I believe is all childish, it's all patriarchal, it's all, it's got the stamp of man all over it. It's tribal. There's nothing believing about it, except in the ritualistic of belief of the expectations of other males. That's all that is. I think of Baraka the movie and those guys who would go, this is a much more profound and transcendental religion. They're getting rid of, the negative energy which causes consternation, which causes inflammation, which causes backup in the system. And as the dendrites and the axons create this neural map with all these little trees and so on, as the vitality to sustain this whole 100 billion neuron universe wanes, that's when things start to collapse, and that's when the plaque starts simply because there it is, short-circuiting. It's like the wires become unused, the myelination starts breaking up, things start short-circuiting, then pretty soon you've got this like putting your hand in a socket, or looking at a brain on cocaine. The frazzledness, the afro nature of that, but collapsing into these broken fibers. So one has an opportunity with the powerful support of unparalleled times. We are an aware people. We have understood more about history than anyone ever before, but that didn't save us from it. Didn't save us from the history narrative, didn't save us from what that's all about. At any rate, the male mind, particularly the one as exhibited in Full Metal Jacket, Ice Cube in Boys in the Hood. Boys in the Hood, a great movie in terms of Trey and his father's influence and the mother's influence, and in terms of psychological development. Boys in the Hood is a great movie. At any rate, as was Thelma and Louise, and I'm trying to sort of recast these movies as learning experiences, and once one realizes that one has to structure the mind somewhere, particularly given the vacuity of stimulus, that we don't have sports around us and entertainment, everything has dropped off a cliff in terms of what our perception can be aligned to in terms of just our attention deficit and so on. Where's our mind going to go?